Hey everyone. Uh it's your favorite thing that you can't just get enough of. And today I wanted to talk about Kierkegaard's two ways of knowing. And I've talked about this book so much in the last roughly 3.5 years, but here I am again. From, you guessed it, The Sickness Unto Death. And in the book, if I'm not mistaken, it might also be in the concept of anxiety because they're kind of connected. But um, he talks about how knowing in one way is very different from knowing in another way. And, as the book sort of goes on, um, you start to realize that the distinction he's making is knowing in your mind and then knowing in action in your works, right? um and I feel like, especially for Semana Santa, Holy Week, this is kind of relevant, even though I'm not a Christian, right? I'm an agnostic atheist, but still, yeah, man. And I mean, what can I say? Who of us has not struggled with that? Where we know we do something wrong, right? We know it's wrong. We know it's not good. Um, and yet we still do it. We give in to our flesh, and you know, that's that's why I honestly, as much as um what people consider to be sins or wrong, right, obviously varies a lot by culture, but it also doesn't, right? And a lot of that is tied in with what makes a functioning society run smoothly, right? You don't lie, you don't steal, you don't unalive people without a good reason. And in the case of the state, I would say basically not at all. To and you know it's a tough thing because ideally, excuse me, your mind and body would be, in one accord. You do this good thing for the right reasons, um and you don't do the bad things because it's bad, and typically it has wrong reasons for it, right? But again, so often in life, because of desire, because of the flesh, we we end up not doing that, guys. And it oftentimes, although not always, right? Because let's be honest, um bad people a lot of the times don't get what they deserve, and good people don't either. um and that's just the way the cookie crumbles. Does that mean that I think that you shouldn't, in an ideal world, try your best so that those two things can align? Yes, but I've I've also noticed that people can do good things for the wrong reasons and bad, quote unquote, bad things for the right reasons. That's why in um like the justice systems, right? We have degrees of crime. Um right? It's not a flat out like this is definitively wrong and there's one standard. No, there's various degrees. It's in all but the most extreme cases, those types of things are pretty gray. Um but what I find interesting um about humans, right? And I'm constantly also thinking of Romans 7, that which I want to do, I don't, right? And that which I don't want to do, I do, oh wretched man that I am, right? I'm paraphrasing. It doesn't exactly go like that, but I feel like most of us are familiar with the KJV phrasing of that, right? And it's like, yeah, man, because ultimately, no matter how much we might try and escape it, and I know this very well as a disabled man, when it comes to any type of relationship, right? Like people can know and they can say all these types of things like, oh yeah, I don't care if you're disabled, I don't care if I need to like come and pick you up and help you, get strapped into your van and stuff like that. But when I actually ask them like, okay, let's hang out or whatever, right? Oh, it's always something, my X, Y, and Z. I don't feel X this way or that way today. Whatever it is, bro. Obviously, you're not fooling anyone. Now, when I was younger, that stuff used to make me pretty mad, right? But now it's kind of just like, okay, whatever, man. Like, because ultimately, you can't control what people uh choose to do, unfortunately. Even if they know in one way, they may not certain they may not necessarily know in the other way. In the example that I just shared, which again has happened to me a lot, people cognitively know, emotionally, morally, ethically, they know, right, that they they shouldn't treat me any differently than anyone else. And by the way, that also applies for negative things like if I'm an a-hole. Um but yet when it comes to their actions, they don't do it, and I've been guilty of that. I mean, um I'm not an inkwell anymore, but I was. And you know, even though deep down I knew the thoughts that I had were wrong and that they were affecting my action towards people IRL and online. Because I'm gonna be honest, man, it's unfair to say that it's the same thing if you get, like, let's say, insulted online, of course, but there's still a person behind that screen. Um, and do I think words have the ultimate power or something? No, of course not. But they do matter and they do have the power to hurt or or I should say better said moralize or demoralize someone. Um And you know, some people, they might not know why something is right. They just do it because it's what they've always done, which in a way, um sin can also creep in there, because like, you know, if you're doing it just because of that, that's not really a strong foundation. You need the other, well, at least I think you need the other part. You need to like be able to really understand why you're doing something, why it's right, why it's wrong. Maybe that's just me, right? Of course, like people like Nietzsche talk about the directness of peasant morality because they don't think, they just do, but that at the same time has its downsides, right? Like, I feel like knowing oneself is unfortunately not enough, and that's another thing with which Kierkegaard um criticizes about, both simultaneously criticizes and praises in the philosophical fragments, right, about the Greek philosophers. He says that their skepticism only goes so far. Their skepticism is about withholding judgment. But here's the dual nature of judgment. Judgment can, and oftentimes does, lead us to be self righteous, right? I know it has for me, but at the same time, if you don't judge, if you don't say, like, hey, you know, I feel X, Y, and Z is wrong, and so I'm not gonna partake in it, even if other people say otherwise, or it's not the popular thing or whatever, right? Like, how could you live life? Um, that's what I've never really understood about universalist philosophies, and morally relativistic philosophies, because like you have to make a judgment somewhere down the line. And just like I said in my Ibn al-Arabi video, like, yes, we do have a responsibility to each other as humans. If another person is hurting themselves or others, to step in, and it might not be obvious hurt. Like it might be, about power relations, like say an inappropriate, um while still technically legal relationship between a student and teacher or something like that. Or it might be a deeper philosophical concern about, like, are you using this person as simply an instrument? So, I know some people will say, oh, well, I mean, that stuff is sort of more abstract. Like, they're not actually hurting anyone, but, like, guys, mental, um, hurt is a thing. Just like my shirt says. That can lead to, as they used to say, mental defects, right? Interestingly, um this shirt is they used to put this X on the papers of immigrants coming into Ellis Island, and um you know most of them did not actually have mental defects. Their mental defect was simply not knowing the English language. And there you go. That was almost entirely a mental thing. Most of them could speak whatever their original languages were, right? There we go with the knowing again. And just like your boy who didn't know English when he came to this country as an immigrant, knowing and knowing, or I should say, knowing and doing are two very different things. Alright, guys, see you. Bye.